Yo, welcome to Hot Takes with Cheddar Chaz, where there's no hand-holding, we do with facts, not emotion. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell notification if you haven't already. Shout out to Miller Lite, DraftKings, Topo Chico. You guys should support them because they support us. Today I have a very interesting show for you guys. I want to talk about Brandon Ingram's contract negotiation. He's eligible for an extension right now, if I'm not mistaken. And I want to give you guys some of the pros and cons of extending him early versus waiting until the upcoming basketball season ensues. Let's talk about it. The number one pro I have for extending Brandon Ingram now versus waiting until the basketball season is you have the opportunity to buy low. He's put forth several single-digit performances in the FIBA tournament. Personally, I don't think the FIBA tournament means much, but you never know how management is viewing those things. You never know what went into negotiations prior to this FIBA tournament. Maybe this was another opportunity for him to show and prove that he has an alpha mentality, or he could play amongst other high-level talents and be successful. So far, that hasn't necessarily been the case. Part of that is the scheme and how he's being used, and a part of that is just who Brandon Ingram is or has been throughout his career when he's asked to play a more off-ball role. So when I look at the numbers that I've seen during the FIBA tournament, those numbers don't necessarily concern me as much, but these numbers do concern me quite a bit. The con to offering an extension now would be the fact that you may be adding insult to injury. If you try to shortchange him and offer him more of a Jeremy Grant type contract, he may be insulted. He may feel like you're kicking him while he's down. You look at a few guys who've recently signed big contract extensions. You have Jaylen Brown, $300 million man. You have Jeremy Grant. Some people feel, that was a bit of an overpay, but that was more because of his attachment to Damian Lillard. Dame probably helped him get that contract. Like, yo, look out for my boy. Gotta love friends like that. And you look at Pascal Siakam, who's eligible for a contract extension. You look at these guys' accolades. You look at their averages last year going into this upcoming season, what's probably expected of them, what role they will be playing, what team they'll be playing on, and the team's expectations. You have Jaylen Brown, you're talking about championship contender. You're talking about, probably all NBA contender going into this season. You have Jeremy Grant looking at a team, maybe lottery team, maybe fringe playing team. You really don't know what's happening with the Portland Trail Blazers up until Damian Lillard is traded. And you look at Pascal Siakam, the Raptors, they're just in total disarray. Everything I've heard is that Pascal wants to stay with Toronto. Toronto may not necessarily feel the same way. He's looking for an opportunity to grab the reins. I think Brandon's only eligible for about 190, 200 million, something like that. I think that margin should probably be widened a bit to 150, 160, 200 million. I think if you're the Pelicans, for as good as Brandon is, you're talking about, one-time All-Star, misses a lot of games. So he may view that as the team potentially kicking him while he's down and taking advantage of the situation while he's being viewed in a negative light across the basketball world at this particular moment. Pro number two, the Pelicans really won't be attracting any type of top-tier free agents. So one could say that it would be better to keep a guy who wants to be here, keep him in the fold, potentially use him as an asset to trade for another high-level talent in the future, him or CJ or even Zion in the future, depending on what the team's goal is. And, keep a guy who says he loves the city. He loves the organization. He's been here a long time. He's one of the longest tenured players here. He has a relationship with management, had a relationship with coaching staff, had a relationship with other players in the organization. So, the grass may not be greener on the other side. Who's to say if you let Brandon Ingram go or you trade Brandon Ingram that you'll be able to replace his talent? The con to that same scenario is you may be able to replace Brandon by committee. You may be able to get several mid-level exception type players, and as a collective they'll be able to replace Brandon's production. Maybe you get a guy like who's the next Austin Reeves. You have Trey Murphy waiting in the wings. You may want to give him the runway and the bandwidth to ascend and grab the mantle and become the next face of your franchise potentially. He has all the tools, 6'10" guy, amazing scoring threat, a lot of defensive upside potential. It may be time to give a guy like that the runway and the bandwidth to be as good as he can be. So that's another con to a situation like that. Pro number 3, you're talking about continuity. Brandon Ingram, like I mentioned before, has a relationship with the coaching staff, several players on his team. Him and Zion have experience playing basketball with one another. Understand Van Gundy, a little bit of experience playing last year. Him and CJ McCollum have experience playing basketball with one another. There's a system in place. There wasn't much staff turnover. There's buy-in from several guys as it pertains to the coaching staff and management. Like I mentioned before, people want to be here, and it will probably help start the season off faster, get guys out there to a quick start to take advantage of players like the Suns who are integrating new players into their system. Bradley Beal, what have you. Luka Doncic and Kyrie still figuring it out. So if the Pelicans can keep that continuity and get out to a quicker start versus the teams who are supposed to be in the upper echelon of the Western Conference, I think that would be very beneficial to them down the stretch. The con is continuity doesn't always win. You've seen several teams who just been together too long. Sometimes things get stale. Sometimes, things just, you don't have the right pieces in place. I think, some people would say we've seen a large enough sample size of Brandon and Zion to say that, yeah, this ain't gonna work. It's just for whatever reason, Brandon, he's not very effective off ball. Zion isn't very effective off ball. They don't really mesh well together. It could be for any number of reasons, but continuity doesn't always equal success. And that's the sad thing about it, because a lot of us saying, going into this year, things are going to be different because everyone knows each other. There wasn't much roster turnover, but it's like, that don't really mean anything. This wasn't a successful team last year. Even when healthy, this team wasn't healthy when they were successful. They might have just hit a lucky break. Another pro, Brandon Ingram still has time to develop. He's a very young guy. I think he's 26, if I'm not mistaken. Young player, still has room to grow, still has room to peak, still, being evaluated. Was Brandon Ingram the guy we saw at the end of the season, or is he that guy that you see when he's just trying to figure it out, when he's trying to integrate into a new system? It's probably somewhere in between. And I'm sure he's still working diligently to become the guy that we saw at the end of the season, playing with a faster pace, shooting more threes, being more decisive, continuing to pass the ball at an incredible rate, just being efficient, being effective. The con in this scenario would be the Pelicans don't have time. This is probably the last year you see this experiment work well. This is probably the last year you see this experiment put to work, whereas Brandon and Zion Williamson on the team together. The Pelicans are going to have to blow this thing up at some point if it doesn't work. You see the Pelicans right now don't have much room to improve. So if Brandon gets a raise, Trey Murphy's getting a raise, CJ McCollum is still on the books, Larry Nance is still on the books, you're going to have to move some of these guys to make room for other guys who are due for raises. And I'm sure a lot of people don't want to sacrifice a person like Trey Murphy. I know a lot of us were thrilled that Herb Jones got his raise. And I personally don't think the locker room is strong enough to survive CJ's leadership leaving the building. And I'm sure the Pelicans don't believe that whatsoever. Not at this stage anyway. Unless it would have to be a deal that just blew everyone's socks off. Another reason why you extend him now is that you lock him up. There's no stress or questioning going into the season aside from maybe Zion. You have your two cornerstones in the building, and now you're just looking at a way to potentially move CJ if things go awry again, or maybe potentially even move Zion if things go awry again. Now, the con to that is if you extend him now, you run the risk of that contract becoming a problem immediately. Going into the season, if there's a potential injury, if he underperforms, you may have yourself a Tobias Harris situation where as a guy, falls off the proverbial cliff after you extend him. Other teams are probably going to be side-eyeing that when you consider that, you got guys like Damian Lillard available, Joel Embiid may be potentially available. Don't know what's going on with James Harden, but James Harden, he's still a Hall of Famer. He may not be at the top of his game right now, but he's still capable of those Hall of Fame moments. And you just don't know what's going to happen with the rest of the NBA. The NBA is a very fickle landscape. You see the comments about Giannis Antetokounmpo not wanting to extend his contract. Teams may be gearing up, trying to make salary cap space to make a bid for him. So if you're management and you believe that you'll have enough buy-in and branding around the turn and become that perennial all-star player, all NBA caliber player, I would say you probably extend him now. Just get it over with, because you don't want to run the risk of him going into the season and maybe making all NBA, and now you're probably due for what some people would consider an overpay. Also, in the event that he goes out this season and he plays like shit, his value is in the tank now. You missed the peak window to move him. Either you're going to be forced to retain him at a price that you're not exactly comfortable with paying, or he's going to walk for nothing and you lose him. So that's something very real that the Pelicans need to consider if they haven't already. Well, that's been today's show. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Leave me your comments. Would you extend Brandon now, or would you wait until you see how this upcoming season unfolds? Talk to me.
With the NFL season right around the corner, nonstop football action is in sight. You can get in on the action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and score $200 in bonus bets instantly. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Life's more fun when you're in on the action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app before kickoff. Use code BOOT to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you just bet $5 on any NFL bet. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code BOOT. The crown is yours.